Welcome to AI Security Ops, the podcast where we cut through the hype and explore the real-world intersection of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Each week, we examine how AI is reshaping both sides of the security landscape, the threats that we're facing, and the defenses that we're building. I am Derek, and I am joined by both Brian and Bronwyn, as per the usual arrangement. And today we're going to look at essentially models versus harnesses. So there's a debate in the security community or the AI community about, is the model the important part or is the harness the important part? And so from a security perspective, I think the idea here is that we hear a lot of things about defenders that they keep blaming the model for things such like that it leaked data through prompt injection or something like that. But in reality, if you look at what's happened in 2025 and 2026, the locus of agent security has shifted to the harness. But there's still a little bit of a debate on, is it the model or the harness? And before we get in to the debate, I'll take a moment to remind everyone that this show is being brought to you by Black Hills Information Security and Anti-Siphon Training. BHIS helps organizations identify and close real-world security gaps through pen testing, adversary emulation and simulation, purple team engagements, managed detection and response. Pretty much if it's security, we can help you with it. Anti-Siphon delivers hands-on practitioner-led training built around real attacks and real defenses and real tools, so you can apply what you learn immediately. Learn more at blackhillsinfosec.com and antisiphotraining.com. And so, what do you all think? What do you think is the harness the more important part for security, or is it the model? And before we talk about that, maybe Brian, do you want to take a stab at kind of the definitions that matter when we say model versus harness?
Yeah, well, I think the main one to get out of the way is just model and harness, right? So model is that is kind of the core AI mechanism, right? So when we're talking about a model, we are talking in the case of LLM, usually some kind of deep learning neural network that has been gone through a training process in which data has been fed in, and there's expected outcomes for that data. And based upon the difference between input and expected output, there are a series of weights that are tuned to try to get a proper alignment, such that when you give the model certain input, you get closer to the output that is expected. And so when we're talking about the model, that's really the core principle there. And so there are a lot of other features that can go along with the model, especially when we talk about how we can better tune it for alignment purposes, things like reinforcement learning, human feedback. So that's something that a lot of people have probably encountered, where you get a response, you get maybe two responses when you're interacting with, say, Claude or ChatGPT, and it says, which one do you like more? And you'll pick, answer one or answer two. And it'll take that information and it'll use it to adjust weights in future iterations to try to get that better alignment. Also baked into the model is a certain level of refusal behavior that goes along with both safety and security principles. Safety meaning that it's likely not going to tell you how to make a bomb right off the bat. Security being that it might not provide its system prompt or other it might refuse other behaviors that it sees as overtly malicious, right?
Like
So
well,
that's
like
kind of the model. What's up?
hot wiring a Volvo XC60. It'll take a little
Yes,
work for it
exactly.
to tell me how to go about doing that.
Yeah,
That's a very
it's very
specific
specific.
analogy, Derek.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes. In my training class, I created a slide because I knew my wife was going to be in the class talking about like classic prompt injection instead of how do I make meth. And then the day I had the slide, she wasn't in the class. But anyway,
No,
Oh,
shoot.
I know.
Next time. Next time. Um, so the other portion then is the harness. So the harness is really kind of like the scaffolding, tooling, coding, all the architecture that you're putting around the model that gives it abilities beyond just generative capabilities of being able to just generate text output or generate images or audio or video or whatever you're having it generate. The harness allows it to go in additional steps to where it's not just a single step of generation or reasoning. What it can actually do is now it can start writing code. It can iterate through that code, testing it, making changes to it as it goes to find errors. Or you can hook it up to be able to run additional tasks, such as summarizing your email and sending out an email from that, or sending out an automated Slack message, or updating user accounts. So the harness is really all of that, kind of the capabilities that we build around the model that kind of runs on top of it. Does that sound about right? Does everyone agree with those general definitions? Throw in
Sounds
your own
like to
thoughts too
me,
if I'm missing
yep.
something.
Sounds
Sounds
like to
good to
me
me.
the
Yeah.
model is the driver and the harness is the car plus the keys plus the road and the
Yeah.
tires.
Yep.
And of course, they're evolving both the models and the harnesses. I mean, I know that I've gone into an LLM and the model has not changed, but there are other behaviors that just from one day to the next may have changed. And that's because of tweaking to the models. Most people aren't going to ever pay attention to that or notice that. So to them, it's just one big black box, which kind of seems like that's the way the AI companies want it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they don't want to be giving away their secret sauce. It's almost like another way you can almost think of it. It's almost like the model is like if you're looking at like programming languages, for instance. Let's just pick one, Golang or something, right? Model could be kind of analogous to the coding language. So you have a certain set of capabilities that are in there. They add features and everything, but it's really what you do with that code, how you piece it together to perform certain actions that can really make a difference in how it functions. And so, in the case of, to your point, of companies wanting to keep this more secret, I mean, that's kind of like their closed source code, if you will. That all these capabilities that they build around it that make it useful, much more useful than it is as it just sits normally.
Yeah, I feel like that up until this point, when we hear the word like red teaming AI, for that means different things to different people. But let's just say attacking AI. It seems to kind of be more focused on attacking the model, like essentially testing refusal, jailbreak prompts, tool exposure, stuff like that. But that's only part of the story. And I know at BHIS we look at the surrounding infrastructure too. But I think, looking at stuff throughout 2025, like a argument for the harness is more important than a model when it comes to security, is that most of the when an agent went rogue kind of thing traced to like over permission tools and not really like model alignment, or some kind of like supply chain attack and not model alignment, right? And so I'm not saying model alignment's not important. I'm just saying, like, from a practical security perspective, I think there might be a little bit more importance on the harness. But I would like to see what you all think about specifically security.
Well, it certainly seems like the harness is defining an awful lot of the behavior, and it's like the I'm trying to come up with an analogy that fits, and nothing really quite works. I mean, the car and driver is good, but I'm almost thinking more like an old style emperor and their entourage. The entourage is the harness. Those are the elements that are doing the actual work and executing the will, so to speak, of the emperor, which in this case is the model. That fits better in my head. I don't know, your mileage may vary. But it means that then by swapping out these helpers and changing what they can and can't do, that drastically alters the capabilities, both in terms of defending the model itself, but also in defending anything else in the ecosystem. What if you've got RAG involved? What if you've got things that are baked in? The harness, I think, is going to have, there's going to be more opportunity to tweak the settings, I think, with the harness. And so I would think that attacking the harness is probably going to get more bang for your buck, especially if you want to get into other things like documents and whatever that may have been attached to the AI ecosystem in this implementation.
Yeah, so looking at what we'll say a couple of failure modes that were just kind of like generic from stories from last year. So, like we'll call it case A: indirect prompt injection via document ingestion. So I'm ingesting a document, and something is I'm ingesting a document, and there's a prompt injection in there, and so it's indirect prompt injection, and the harness just passes that along to the model because it has no concept of being able to like look for prompt injection, or if that prompt injection is then like leading to a tool call. It has no allow list on a tool call. Like I spent a lot of time in the last like a couple months building agents, and one of the things that I build in from the ground up is like, let's log all the tool calls, right? And let's make sure that we know what's happening. I mean, because that's just kind of a defense in depth kind of thing, right? And you look at something like Claude Code, like, at least maybe I'm wrong, but at the moment I don't think like built into Claude Code, which is a type of harness, I don't think they have like logging built in. Now I think you can do things to like beef that up, right? Like put something like personal AI infrastructure or change the configuration yourself. But they don't have logging. They do have sandboxing, and they do have the ability to allow list or deny list tools, which out of the box, it doesn't come that way, but you can make those changes, which kind of leads me to the next kind of case where an agent loop or Claude Code is able to essentially gain access to something that it shouldn't have access to, because it's able to change its configuration, like by turning the sandbox off. I can tell you from experience, many times I have the sandbox on in Claude Code, it will say, oh, I can't reach that, or I can't do that because it's sandboxed. Let me just go turn that off. And then it'll go do it. Which I guess you could argue if that's a sandbox or not. At least I see that it's doing it because I'm paying attention, right? But I guess what I'm saying is I think we're still trying to figure out this. This is an interesting debate, in my opinion, because I think it's still in its infancy in information security.
Yeah, I agree. Trying to figure out, what are the controls that we put around, what are the ones that are necessary, and striking that balance between, secured, being secure and being usable. And so still figuring out all the little quirks and kind of how we can deal with that. Looking at one of these examples is talking about egress policy. I think that's a great one, especially if you're dealing with a model that you want to keep local. I've got a wasp that's going to come harass me here. And you want the actions to keep local. Well, did you set up a policy that disallows it from talking out to the internet? And when I say model, I really mean I'm talking about like open code, something that has a harness around it that has the ability to say perform web searches or take some other action. Well, it's not that the model is misbehaving; it's that it has the capability to perform certain actions, and it doesn't necessarily know whether or not it should do those. So it's important to put in to like, hey, no, just block off all internet access if that's what you want. Those types of scenarios to consider and think about.
Yeah, I like that idea. I also like telemetry on tool calls, not just it. I had a prompt and it completed and I got output. And so, for example, in the AI agent I've been creating, I had a tester ask me, "Hey, can I get a log of like what all the AI is doing?" Like, got you covered. That's in tool underscore or tool dot log, right? Like, and so it was every agent has everything logged. And so, there's a couple other ideas, like especially like for something like Claude Code. a hook layer for deterministic policy. So every time an agent starts or stops or makes a decision, there's gates in there, kill switches, like network ACLs. And so the concept of hooks is something that's in Claude code already. What else?
This one's kind of interesting. The permission prompts that show consequence text, not just tool names. So rather than just being like, would you like to allow this command, to like give additional context of, if you run this command, here are the potential implications of it. Oh,
And that is actually not a bad idea.
yeah.
Let's see. There's another one. A work tree or container isolation as a default, not opt-in. Yeah, keeping things separated is a good idea. And so I think basically,
Sorry.
yeah, exactly. That was the last DerbyCon that I went to when the Offspring played. So
Oh.
I know
yeah.
it's gotta. Yeah, Brian was there. I
Dude,
took
it was
my
a good.
daughter too. She was 12 at the time, and now she's 18 and graduating high school. Man,
Has it been that
time
long
flies.
since the last DerbyCon? Seems like
Yeah,
yesterday.
Well,
2019.
yeah. So, all right. So,
But that has nothing to do with AI.
well, I mean, I think we can probably, wrap this up. I mean, it seems like to me that the three of us seem to kind of agree that yes, model alignment and security and having the refusal prompts, that's important. But so is a lot of the stuff that we're talking about in harnesses, and it reminds me of something that's been a mantra in security for as long as I've been doing it. And that's, I hate to admit, like a segue from what I was just saying about my daughter graduating. It's been a while, a long time. And that's defense in depth, right? You need a lot of different things layered on in, security to be able to detect or prevent some kind of attack from happening. And AI agents are no different.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing you can have all of the safety and alignment stuff that you want baked into the master prompt or other aspects of the model itself. But the way the models interact with the harnesses, it's almost a chicken and egg. Which came first? Which one is more important? You can't really play ball without all of them. And if any one aspect is misconfigured, the whole deck of cards comes tumbling down.
All right. And with that, I'll do one shameless plug. If you're interested in learning more about agent security and attacking and defending and leveraging AI, we have a class coming up in October at Wild West Hacking Fest. Brian and I are teaching it. And I don't know, Bronwyn,
And I
hopefully
will
you're there.
probably be moderating.
Ah,
I've already put
wonderful.
in a request. So,
Oh, that'd be
yes.
fantastic.
well, I would, let me know if I need to make it happen. I mean, it would seem like, okay. Usually
I've
they
got
ask
an
us
in.
if such and
Alex,
such can be a, yeah.
I
If you don't
asked
have
Alice,
an in,
like, hey, can I? And she said, yeah, sure. Hey, I'm the one
well,
who's
there we
written
go.
up all of the Hitchhiker's Guide lore for this conference
Yeah.
coming up. So I think I'm set.
That does remind me, we're going to have to change the CTF from Stargate theme to Hitchhiker's theme.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know if you
Well,
need any help with that. Apparently, I am the Hitchhiker's Guide maven.
sweet. Yeah, I have. It's been 20 years since I've probably read that. Probably longer, actually. But
Well, I have. Here it is. Well, I've got Douglas Adams, but I also have the more than complete Hitchhikers. And I'm
the whole
backwards. I had
six-book
no
trilogy.
idea.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Well, this is just the first 4 books of the trilogy, but it does have gold leaf on the outside, and I've got a little ribbon place marker, the whole schmear. And oh, look at this inset paper. Is that awesome or what?
Oh, nice.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I would just get it
So-
on
Love it.
Kindle and reread it.
One of my
Sweet.
prized possessions, anyway. But
All right, well,
yeah,
let's
looking
wrap
forward
this thing
to it.
up. Yeah, it's going to be fun, and so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And I'll say, thanks again for watching, and yeah, keep on prompting.